All right, today we're diving into a really provocative idea, summed up perfectly in this title, sprinting nowhere. It's basically a diagnosis for that feeling so many of us have, that we're all running faster and faster, but we have no idea where we're actually going.
So the whole idea we're digging into today kicks off with a question that sounds super simple, but it's really hard to answer. You've got 8 billion of us on this planet, all working, stressing, building, creating, but what are we collectively working towards?
And according to the thinking here, if you zoom out far enough, the answer to that huge question is pretty unsettling. It looks like we're sprinting nowhere. We're all putting in the effort, but as a whole, we're just running in place. And that's the central problem we're going to unpack.
So why aren't we asking that big question more often? Well, that gets us to our first big idea here. The system itself seems almost perfectly designed to keep us too exhausted to even think about it. And hey, this isn't about your personal 5-year plan. This is about the direction of our entire society that we just don't question.
So the main point is this. We've built these incredibly advanced societies, right? But they seem designed to stop us from looking inward. We've managed to turn just existing into a giant, exhausting chore. And the craziest part? We've convinced ourselves, we've gaslit ourselves into believing that this constant state of burnout is just normal.
So what does all that exhaustion actually look like day to day? Well, this is where a really powerful metaphor comes in to describe it. Life in the cage. Let's break down what that daily grind really is.
It's a cycle that, honestly, probably sounds a little too familiar. You wake up tired. You go to a job you never really dreamed of as a kid. You do that to pay for a life you're too busy or too tired to actually enjoy. And maybe the most ridiculous part of it all? A lot of it is just to impress other people who are stuck in the exact same trap.
And how are we told to measure our progress in this whole routine? Well, check out this definition of success. It has nothing to do with happiness or feeling fulfilled. Nope, it's all about measuring our worth using these external things, numbers we didn't invent, money we didn't choose, and deadlines that our bodies and brains were absolutely not built to handle.
And all of this leads to a pretty blunt conclusion. When you look at that routine, at those metrics, this isn't freedom. It's a well-designed cage. The bars are just invisible.
Okay, but wait. If it's a cage, where are the guards? And that, right there, brings us to our third section. And this is where it gets really interesting, psychologically speaking. The guards are us. Why we end up policing our own prison. Here's the twist. The system is so deeply baked into our culture that it doesn't even need guards anymore. We're the ones who do the dirty work. We use peer pressure, we use shame to keep each other in line, defending the very structure that we're told is trapping us. But that begs a really important question, right? If this system feels so draining and wrong, why do we jump to defend it so fiercely? Why do we get so protective of it when someone tries to step outside the lines?
And the answer is, well, it's really human, and it's pretty painful. Because if we admit the system is broken, we'd have to face the idea that all our sacrifices, all that time, that stress, our health, might have been for something that was hollow. And that is an absolutely terrifying thought.
That fear is powerful for sure, but the argument here is that this isn't just in our heads, it goes way deeper than that, right down to our biology. And that brings us to this idea of a glitch in our DNA, this profound discomfort we feel because of an evolutionary mismatch.
And this is such a powerful way to reframe those feelings. That low-level anxiety or that feeling of being down that you just can't shake. The argument is that it's not a personal failure. It's not you that's broken. It's your ancient primal instinct screaming at you that something about your environment is fundamentally wrong. It's an alarm bell.
And this slide really breaks down that mismatch. Think about it. We did not evolve to sit still all day staring at glowing rectangles. We didn't evolve to be so isolated yet so overstimulated all the time. Or to be constantly comparing ourselves to others, terrified of falling behind. Our survival used to depend on community, and now we're told to treat it like a competition. Okay, so this comparison here is really fascinating. And it's important to note, this isn't about romanticizing the past. Life was brutal, no doubt. But the argument is that we made a trade. We swapped a life that was harsh but honest for a life that has tons of comfort but not a lot of fulfillment. We swapped real connection for connection without intimacy. And we swapped real hard-earned wisdom for just endless information.
So all of this is building to the final and maybe the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. The power of disconnection.
This is the mechanism, the true source of control that lets this whole system keep on running.
And this is so important. The argument isn't that this is some big, evil conspiracy theory with people in a dark room pulling the strings. It's something way more insidious. The system works because it taps into and feeds on our own unhealed wounds, our fears, our insecurities, our need to feel like we matter.
This is basically the playbook, the step-by-step guide on how it all works. You start by feeding people's fear and sense of scarcity. Then you stoke their insecurity, make them always compare themselves to others. You encourage that need to feel superior. You capitalize on that deep human terror of being insignificant. And then, to make sure nobody notices what's happening, you give them an endless supply of distractions. And, maybe most importantly, you discourage them from ever truly feeling their own grief and emotions.
And it all boils down to this one core idea. When people become disconnected from themselves, from their gut feelings, from their true needs, it creates a vacuum. And power rushes in to fill that vacuum, telling us what we should want, what we should buy, and what we should be afraid of.
And that leaves us with this final and honestly pretty chilling summary. The ultimate way to control someone isn't through force. It's by creating that internal disconnection. And that's a diagnosis that really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? If this whole thing is the cage, how on earth do we even begin to find the key?